Welcome to Situation Room. I'm your host IQBAL, and in today's episode we'll be talking about the Pahalgam false flag operation, India's war hysteria and the Hindutva ideology. If you're talking to the backdrop of the false flag operation, following the Pahalgam false flag operation, India was repeating its patterns of the old, with war hysteria, warmongering, propaganda against Pakistan, and the blame game that we always see from the Indian side, accusing Pakistan without any evidence. A similar pattern was witnessed back in 2019. Of course, India used the Pulwama false flag operation as a pretext to unilaterally and illegally abrogate Article 370 and 35A, which plunged the illegally occupied valley into further chaos and turmoil. In repetition of its behaviors of the past, India did something similar and is now using the Pahalgam false flag operation as a pretext to revoke the Indus Waters Treaty unilaterally and illegally, a step that has been condemned by Pakistan. A befitting response has been given. As Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan, he said that no compromise will be made on water as it is an essential lifeline for 240 million Pakistanis. The same was also reiterated by the country's military leadership and the other political leadership of the country. Of course, when we talk about the Indian side, it continued with its war hysteria and propaganda, leaving no opportunity to spew venom against Pakistan. But it went silent in the face of one question that was not just raised by Pakistan, but it is a question that is being raised from within India itself, from the Indian political leadership, from the religious community, and from their own former military officials as well. And the question is, the most militarized zone in the world, yet those security forces could not prevent this incident from happening. It questions the security failure on the Indian part. Now, this question is being raised from within India, from the political, religious, and even the former military officials of the Indian side. And after so much noise, we see that the Indian media has gone completely silent, which raises a further question of how the Indian media is being held accountable, how it is responsible to answer its own people, which it is not doing at the moment. Now, there's also another question that raises with regards to all this war hysteria and propaganda that we're seeing from the Indian side, and this criminal silence that we're also seeing. The disregard for international laws, the weaponizing of water, and persecuting minorities in India. It raises a question whether India, being a strategic ally of those champions of human rights, has been carrying out its atrocities and brutality with immunity from all the international laws. We'll be deliberating on all the different aspects of this Pahalgam false flag operation and how India is using it as a pretext to carry out further its Hindutva agenda. In the studios, we've been joined by Abdullah Khan, who is Managing Director of PICSS, and we've been joined by Brigadier Retired HAMID Rashid Malik, who is a defense analyst. Thank you both for your time and being part of the conversation. Starting off from Mr. Abdullah, the false flag operation, well, we'll continue the conversation, but we have to take a short break right before that. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and starting off our conversation from Mr. Abdullah Khan, the false flag operations and India's patterns of the old. How would you comment on that? We've seen something similar back in 2019.
There is a history of Indian false flag operation, and especially the Chatti Singhpura, we should not forget, and where the Sikhs, about 35 Sikhs were killed. At that time, American president was visiting India, and this time American vice president was visiting India. But this time there is a difference. The difference is that India has lost its narrative globally. As you highlighted in your intro, that the questions are being raised internally, but I have seen that international media, international governments are also raising questions. You may have read in the New York Times that one of the ambassadors who attended the briefing by the Foreign Office of India, he said that you are going to war with a nuclear armed neighbor just because of your past patterns, because India could not produce any evidence to those ambassadors who attended that briefing. So this is, there is frustration in India that they are losing the narrative. They had this impression that America will side with them, and they had this impression that global community would side with them, keeping in mind that India is a big size of economy, and the way it has projected itself. But I think hats off to Pakistani diplomats and Pakistani diplomacy in this course of period when after Pahalgam, that successfully Pakistan was able to debunk the Indian narrative globally, not just for the Pakistani own nation, but globally, and that is a remarkable. At the UN Security Council resolution, the India could not get that draft which the Americans had tabled. The Pakistan is a non-permanent member, and Pakistan successfully made sure that it has nothing negative language against Pakistan, and the language actually endorses indirectly Pakistan's stance of independent inquiry. If you read between the lines of that draft, China has openly supported Pakistan's stance of independent inquiry, and now it is a global voice is coming in Pakistan's favor that there should be an independent inquiry, because the world cannot afford to see two nuclear neighbors to going for war just without any evidence. So the false flag is now far behind. Now India is unable to find an excuse to go to kinetic operations which they actually promised to their nation. Now they are held hostage to their commitment, because nobody is going to endorse their kinetic operations, while they are now in a catch-22 situation, how to pacify the war hysteria they brought in India, and they made their nation believe that India is going to kill Pakistan. And the point is that the Pakistan this time is different from 2019, because at that time we had this messaging behind the scene that we may show restraint, but this time the messaging Pakistan has given that it will not be the tit for tat, it will be two tits for tat, and that the messaging is now disturbing India and the global community, because Pakistan is not going to get this pressure this time. Definitely. And that is the problem actually.
Definitely, and Pakistan does have the right to respond. Brigadier Hamid, I'd like your comments as well. As when we talk about India and its patterns of the old, the propaganda that it goes with, just some time ago, a few months ago, there was this propaganda being done from the Indian side that Pakistan stands diplomatically isolated. But the ironic fact of that was the own Indian External Affairs Minister had to come to Pakistan to attend the SCO, where there was a large delegation of the world community present. Of course, India has always had to face embarrassment with regards to the propaganda it does, with regards to the war hysteria, and with regards to the narrative building it does. We've seen it doing the similar. Of course, it did it in 2019 for creating a pretext for its unilateral and illegal actions. It is doing so the same again. But now when the questions are arising from within India, calling it a security failure, the media is quiet. What would you say about that?
First of all, we should understand that being a nuclear country, India should be a very responsible country in the region and globally. And why it is being pushed by America and Europe to be a counterweight against China, it has to show more maturity. But on the contrary, what we see that it is always a childish behavior shown by the Indian leadership as well as by the army also. Because why I am saying army also, because what army is doing in Indian occupied Kashmir is not legal. It is not a professional army's approach. They are involved in extrajudicial killings, burning of the houses, rape of women. And this is all inhuman activities which are being done under the nose of a very secular or a political government, which is very surprising. Now coming straight to your answer again, that India is habitual of lies and deceiving people, but you can deceive someone once but not always. And here again, they tried that they had been able to at least give a sense to the international community that they have been victim of terrorism in Pulwama, but not this time, because it is 30 kilometers deep in the Indian occupied Kashmir, and if it is sponsored by any country, do you think that those group of people moved without being detected? Who armed them? And that is why, as my colleague also highlighted, India would never go for a free and fair impartial inquiry of the event, because they know they will be exposed, and when they will be exposed, the world would know. Only, I think, cushion which they get, that they become darling of America or Europe, being counterweight to China, but soon this advantage they will not have. Because in the community of nations, being a nuclear country, they have to be a very peaceful nuclear country also, because nuclear holocaust in this region is not going to suit the Southeast Asia or to the world.
Well, definitely, it doesn't suit anyone in the world. With regards to that, Mr. Abdullah, I'd like a question and an answer from you. When we talk about the Indian actions and how it creates a propaganda, how it makes pretext for its actions that it wants to do in the future, unilateral and illegal actions, do you think there should be an accountability mechanism for such propaganda that we see from the Indian side, and then they get off from it without any repercussions?
Unfortunately, India has been, getting away with what its, illegal actions. What it been doing in Kashmir is totally illegal. Not implementing UN Security Council resolution, holding hostage the Kashmiri people, but international community is totally silent on that. But beside the governments, and but there are international organizations which are holding India accountable, and what they can say, they are saying. I was just coming to your show and watching the French TV, which was debunking the Indian narrative, because the Indian promoted a couple who is still alive, and they claimed, Indian mainstream media claimed that these are the last moments of their time at Pahalgam. So there are so many issues which the French TV was debunking, and there are so many other international entities which are debunking Indian narrative. One thing I would like to highlight, you talk about the security failure, and some people say intelligence failure. That question arises only when, if it is not done by Indian deep state. If it is done by themselves, then this question is out of question. So how can we question? Because if they did it, and there are so many evidences, substantial evidences that they did it themselves. Because in the past, whenever such kind of incident happened, Indians were quick enough, to capture the people, the perpetrator. There's a 10th day, and the 4 people they claim. By the way, some said now they were 6, 4 or 6. Where have they gone? 5 kilometers from Pahalgam city, just 5 kilometers. No gunship helicopter, no surveillance, no drones. Where have they disappeared? If so, the question of security failure is only when it is not false flag, but it is purely false flag operation. So this question doesn't arise for me.
Well, definitely, that's an important point that you raised. But the reason why I asked this question is because we saw the Indian media, how their journalists were creating so much hype on this. But now they remain silent, and we want to see, as we know, the Indian side has been very capable of cooking up lies. We would want to see how they make up a story with regards to this. Moving towards Brigadier Saab, the Hindutva ideology that we see, do you think it's the policies that we're seeing that India is implementing in the region, is it a Hindutva ideology, or are they attempts to destabilize the region? Because we know there's so much efforts for regional connectivity and cooperation going on, such as the BRI being initiated by China.
I think very appropriately highlighted, this Hindutva mindset or ideology is the root cause of all these inhuman actions being taken by Modi government as well as by their military also. because they have a certain mind, like Lebensraum, they want that India should only be for Hindus. Not India, they call it Hindustan. Hindustan only for Hindus. And that means that Sikhs, Muslims, Christians, or other minorities living there, they don't have any right to live in Hindustan. Just see the mindset. And what we see, the treatment which is being meted out to Muslims, their life has become a hell. See what Sikhs are getting from Hindus.
Definitely.
Christians, they are burnt in churches. And same way we see that in the northeastern states, they want freedom from India. So this Hindutva mindset is torching the secular mindset within the India also. And what we see that earlier Indians used to claim that they are secular by design and there is a shining India. But now we see it is Hindutva and burning India.
Yeah.
It is no more shining India, it is a burning India. And this fire is not going to only affect the neighbors, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Maldives, or even Sri Lanka. What we already know what they did in Sri Lanka, what they are doing in Pakistan. The Balochistan insurgents, they are being supported militarily as well as with weapons and with finances by India. Kulbhushan Jadhav is clear example, and now this time also.
Definitely, Brigadier Ahmed, you've raised a very important points. I'd like comment from and include Dr. QANDIL Abbas in the conversation as well, who is a foreign affairs expert. So thank you for your time and being part of the conversation. As the conversation has shaped up so far, we were talking about the accountability on the Indian side with regards to how we saw their media and social media was going up with war hysteria, the blame game that we saw, and how they're spewing venom against Pakistan. Of course, they leave no opportunity, but at the same time, when there were questions being raised, when there were evidences being asked for, the Indian media went silent. Do you think it's a furtherance of their Hindutva ideology or a greater design to destabilize the region at large?
Thank you for having me. I believe no doubt India is one of the important country of the region and of the world. And considering its population, which is approaching 1.5 billion people, and its geographical size, world is expecting responsible conduct of Indian state. But we know that during last 7 decades, India has appeared as irresponsible state because of its regional hegemonic designs, particularly. And for these designs, India has adopted aggressive regional and foreign policy. And aggressive posture has proved that India is irresponsible state on 3 levels: on domestic level, on regional level, and on international level. Particularly after rise of BJP in India, the ideology of Hindutva has instigated Indian hegemonic design both on regional and international levels. And on domestic level, we know that because of Hindu nationalism and extremist policies of BJP, there are certain aggressive policies against minorities, particularly Sikhs and Christians, as well as the Muslims. So that has resulted to instability, domestic instability. And for that instability, now BJP government is trying to divert the attention of domestic population as well as regional and international players. That is why they are using false flag operations, and they are sponsoring trans-border and cross-border terrorism. We know that they are very clearly involved in terrorism and sponsoring terrorism in Canada and United States of America and Qatar and some other countries. And particularly in the case of Pakistan, we have very clear evidences in case of Balochistan, where Kulbhushan is in the custody of Pakistani security forces. And he confessed that he was responsible for establishment of intelligence network to terrorize the people and to support terrorists in Balochistan. So that is very clear evidence. Similarly, their aggressive posture has resulted in 2019 their air attack on Pakistan, and they lost their 2 airplanes, and Abhinandan were arrested in Pakistan. So that is showing that on 3 levels, on domestic level, on regional level, and on international level, India is appearing as a non-responsible state. and particularly Indian hegemonic designs about its neighbors and its interference into the small countries in the neighborhood of India has proved that
Kandil,
India is
that's a very important point that you raised, and I'm sorry to cut you here, but Pakistan is not the only country that has evidence. We know how the Indian Navy spies were caught in Qatar as well, how the Five Eyes had provided evidence with regards to Indian involvement in extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings. Pakistan is not the only country that has been raising this issue of India's extrajudicial, extraterritorial, and illegal actions. But there, Pakistan has been highlighting, the other countries have highlighted, but no no significant action has been taken to hold India accountable. Do you think it's a high time then the international community, even the strategic allies, those champions of human rights that they call themselves, take cognizance of India's actions that it carries out with regards to disregard for all the international laws and acts with immunity from the international laws as well? Well, we'll try reconnecting to Dr. QANDIL Abbas. I think we've lost contact with him. Coming towards Mr. Abdullah Khan. Sir, the same question, of course. Pakistan has been highlighting this issue since a very long time. But Pakistan is not the only country that has been highlighting since the recent past. Indian Navy spies were caught in Qatar. There were countries like Canada, the US, and Five Eyes that, that alleged India's involvement in extrajudicial and extraterritorial killings. India, with its illegal and extrajudicial actions, stands exposed in front of the world. But do you think it's high time when its own strategic allies, those champions of human rights, call out India for its human rights abuses, for persecuting the minorities, and for its actions that it has been carrying out with immunity from international laws?
Although, you know, India's strategic allies and so-called champions, you are highlighting the champions of human rights, have not taken any action against India. But one thing happened from this is that now, because of all these episodes which you have highlighted, nobody is going to believe it, and that is the killing of credibility of India. The people used to believe in India, but now nobody is believing in India because of all these things that you talk about, the intelligence of Five Eyes, assassinations in Canada, assassination attempt in US, you know, in New Zealand, as well as in Czech Republic, Qatar. There are many other countries, and in all the European countries now, the intelligence was, because they have a mechanism of intelligence sharing. They all know how India is involved in assassination. That's why this time the Pakistan's narrative is now, people have started to be, but nobody is going to buy the Indian narrative. This is the Barkhadat, you know, was crying that international media is not giving the adequate coverage to Pahalgam attack, because the world is now well aware of Indian designs. But the point you are highlighting is, it is very significant that these champions of human rights, they should hold India accountable, because economy is not the only thing. And the very important thing which I often highlight is what India did for international order. While Pakistan was part of the international, you know, two big wars, Pakistan sided with the international community in war on terror, sacrificed thousands of people, $200 billion losses, and, you know, many other things. What India, you know, paid to the international community so far, or we can say the West, except the lip service. It is, you know, reaping the benefits but doing nothing. And the one more thing is that, you know, this is now being realized in the West as well. And that is the reason you have seen that after Trump came into power, the US administration has released 300+ million rupees for Pakistan's F-16, but India was given tariff, and, you know, some very tough statement by the Trump administration, and they know very well that India is actually benefiting. The trade balance is not in you know, America's favor. Some people used to say that India is a big market, but India is selling its product in the US, not the US selling its product more in India. So India is reaping the benefit, trying to portray itself as anti-China, but it will never deliver anything against China, because it knows that it is not capable of doing anything against China, otherwise it will be crushed. So that is how international community needs to understand that its strategic utility is also, you know, it's like a false flag.
Definitely. And you mentioned that capabilities against China. Well, I also heard some former military chiefs saying they're incapable of having a war with Pakistan as well. That makes it more interesting for the while. Brigadier Hamid, coming towards you. We know that misinformation and disinformation, it is a problem that is being faced by the world. But when we talk about the Indian media, misinformation, it is something that's being promoted at the moment. Do you think the world community should also take cognizance of that? Because as Mr. Abdullah Khan mentioned, the world community is having a high time in trusting in what India says at the moment.
In strategic world, basically your interest drives your external affairs as far as your diplomacy is concerned, your external maneuver is concerned. Here, my colleague is saying that India will not be able to do something, but he is being portrayed as such that it is anti-China opponent, and in the region, if somebody wants to be regional power, that right goes to India. And because of that mindset which prevails in Europe and in America, this Indian irresponsible acts are overlooked. But this time the world did buy an idea, because here if we see the Pahalgam incident, it has two parts. One part that India wanted to portray itself as a victim of terrorism, okay. But for that it needs certain evidences to be put in front of the world, like Pakistan, DGISP are openly put forward the evidence of Indian Army's involvement with Mr. Majid, who is a terrorist, who has been doing tests against Pakistani army as well as the civilians. Has they proved such like that? No, because already highlighted by my friend that it is their own state sponsored act against their own Hindus, because they wanted to be deceiving the world by saying we are also one of the victims. And the second part, that being a nuclear country, they were warning of a war to another nuclear country. See that their military strategists, military thinkers, they have gone insane. They wanted a Holocaust in this region. And what I can say, they can initiate a war, but as DGISP alluded also, that the war will be terminated by Pakistan by its own choosing and its own time. And just see a conflagration between two nuclear countries, that means mutual destruction. And in case of mutual destruction, there are many other Muslim countries, but only Hindu country will be wiped out from the world map. They should understand that they have so much to lose, their economic growth, their economic muscles, there so much of population, and see their dream of becoming a regional power, and American support also. This will all go into the ashes, whereas we know also know as Pakistani what we have to offer, our lives. We will be martyrs, we will get a good place in Jannah, and this has been promised by our religion to us. That is why when they tried to demoralize Pakistan, army chief with his own bravery, he visited the frontline soldiers, he visited the training exercises, and he raised the morale of the soldiers and our nation also. I want to salute our nation also, you all people, especially our young generation, that it came up with so much of vigor and so much of devotion for the country that they said, okay, if you want to start a war yesterday or tomorrow, come today. And that is why so much of time has passed. India military has never got that guts to even do some. There are some skirmishes on their line of control, but Pakistan army is giving a befitting reply, and it will always give, because we are being supported by 250 million of brave Pakistani nation.
Well, definitely we are from this country and the country is from us, and of course we'll continue to defend our motherland. With that, moving towards Mr. Abdullah Khan, sir, as we talk about this false flag operation and the aftermath of that, India unilaterally and illegally revoking the Indus Waters Treaty and weaponizing water in these modern times in the 21st century, when of course there's so much talk of human rights and so much talk of essential resources that should be protected as a resource. There's also a persecution of the minorities in India. When we talk about the Pahalgam false flag, we saw a rise in the persecution against Muslims. Of course, the Muslims are not the only community. The Sikhs, the Christians, every minority in India is being persecuted. But at the same time, we see no response from the international community. Do you think there's a nexus between the ideology and that of the Hindutva it is pursuing these days and that of the Nazi ideology that we once saw?
Let me make one thing clear, that we as a Pakistani nation and Pakistani state, we have nothing to do with Hindus. We are not against Hindus, because Hindus are our citizens and they are very, Pakistan loving, and they are part of our armed forces as well, our community, and they are standing with our armed forces.
But it's about the radicalization.
It is about the Hindutva, not the Hindus, and the same Hindus in India, they are also not approving this. So this is extremist ideology of this Hindutva, who are the saffron terrorism, we can use the term. And you rightly put that what is going on after this. While we got united, despite all the political turmoil here in Pakistan, we got united in the face of a threat. What happened in India? They have divided themselves. India has the third largest Muslim population in the world. After Indonesia, Pakistan and Bangladesh, the fourth largest Muslim population, and some people say the larger than Bangladesh, is living in India. So how can you 200 plus Muslim, how can you do that to them? But you are doing the same to the Kashmiri people. The false narrative India was promoting, they busted itself. What was that? That there is normalcy in Kashmir. But what you are doing to the Kashmiris every day, the shawl sellers, the local vendors, and from everywhere in India, they are being sent back to the occupied Kashmir. And what is going on in India, in occupied Kashmir, they are destroying the homes of the people. 2,000 people have been arrested so far. So all that is, the false narrative they built, now that has badly exposed. What the Nazi and the Hindutva ideology, you need to know that when RSS was formed back in early 90s, they had at that time connection with the Nazis, and they had developed their ideological connection, and that is ethnic cleansing of the others, that is their motives, and they firmly believe in that, and that is the problem. That is a threat for the Muslims in Hindustan, that is a threat for the Muslims, the Christians, and the low caste Hindus in India, because unfortunately those RSS terrorists are now ruling the largest country in the world, and the world knows that Modi is a terrorist, because nobody was going to give him visa whole Europe and then America as well. But unfortunately he became Prime Minister of India because of the majority of Hindutva influenced people. But I think those Hindus who are voting for them, one day they will realize that they committed a suicide, because Modi will be proven as the Gorbachev of India, because India will disintegrate. That cannot hold together a diverse society where so much big population of Muslims, so much big population of Sikhs and Christians are there, and as the Brigadier Sahab has highlighted, the chicken neck, the Seven Sister States, the independence movement, and the Khalistan is there, and how you can put together all these diverse people when you are going to suppress all of them. That is not going to happen.
Brigadier Hamid, coming towards you, Modi's and the BJP's communal politics, of course, it is targeting the Muslim communities, it is targeting the minorities in India, but its own repercussions with regards to India as a state. What would you comment on about that?
I think it will have very far-reaching repercussions for India. Being a nuclear country and being a very big country in the region also. There are two aspects of Modi's policy if we see India-centric coming to. One is the internal audience. As far as the internal audience is concerned, what the experience is that India's anti-Pakistan rhetoric has been able to get Modi seats and to win elections. And maybe Modi thinks that this is a good card to play whenever there is election. And if you see also analytically, whenever there is election, there is a false flag operation, and then there is a landslide victory for Modi. So maybe he thinks that this is a win-win situation for him, and that is why he is doing that. But on the contrary, what we see that internationally, it is losing its repute. even as one of my also colleague highlighted, that a nuclear country needs to be responsible neighbor in the region, and India is portraying itself as the most irresponsible state in the region, which is causing turmoil in the region's peace. And now coming over to another aspect, that where is the secular India and the shining India? Because what earlier leadership of India has been trying to do is to create some harmony within the different caste, religions within the India, which has been destroyed by Modi. And Abdullah Sahab also highlighted, it is not going to flourish India, it is going to disintegrate India. And very high, I think appropriately named him not Hitler but Gorbachev. Okay, like so Soviet Union, India will disintegrate, and the disintegration of India, what I think and perceive, will give more regional stability, because the way Modi is behaving, it is not only destroying its neighbors, it is destroying India also.
Definitely. That's a very important point raised. With regards to that, I'd come towards Mr. Abdullah Khan. As we talk about Modi's policies and the RSS ideology that is being implemented and has very hard repercussions for the region at large, similarly we see that India stands exposed globally at the moment, and how its narrative building and how its policies of the Hindutva, the RSS, the radical extremist policies that we talk about, it's raising questions from within India as well, and the different communities within India. Do you think this political move by the BJP RSS could backfire on India with regards to how it's blaming Pakistan, and this issue is now being taken cognizance of globally? And secondly, how India should respond, how India should behave with regards to regional situation as well, because there's a lot of effort being done for cooperation, connectivity, but at the same time when we talk about India, it's the only one that is moving on with its hegemonic designs.
I think the blowback will happen in India. The dust will settle down one day and the people will start questioning. Already you see the recent elections, the BJP could not get absolute majority that it was aiming for, and big numbers the Congress won, and they are on the downslide right now in India. When the dust will settle, because the problem is, as I said earlier, that the Modi Sarkar is now caught in its own commitments. So they made a commitment that they will take action against Pakistan. Now they got the message that Pakistan will give a befitting response which you will not be able to sustain, and that is something, because they were aiming that they will do some surgical strike and Pakistan will keep silent, and Pakistan gave a strong message that no, we will not remain silent, because at that, if you recall, 2019 everything happened inside Pakistan. Their plane was shot down here, but this time no, if you will cross, we will cross as well. If you will fire one, we will fire two missiles. So that is the thing that they are calculating how to avoid, because they know the Pakistan's superiority in the air, in the missile system, and the Pakistani military during last 2 decades of war on terror, it is very battle hardened. So their military, what they didn't face that kind of a threat. It's just some freedom fighters in Kashmir.
Definitely.
And, so they are in trouble. And now, if they will not match the promise, the blowback will happen. The people will raise question, and BJP, I think, is in a serious trouble.
Definitely questions being raised, and of course important questions that are being raised. Criminals on the part of Indian media, as they were going on with so much warmongering, so much noise was being made with regards to the war hysteria, and putting the shift, blaming Pakistan as it has always done. But with regards to the questions that are being raised, the own intelligence failure, the own security failure on the part of the Indian side, there's criminal silence, and the Indian media should take responsibility and give answers to its own people, give answers to the world community that are now raising these questions as well. I'd like to thank all of our guests that were part of the conversation. Mr. Abdullah Khan, MD PICSS, Brigadier Retired Hamid Rashid Malik, Defence Analyst, and Dr. QANDIL ABBAS, Foreign Affairs Expert. Thank you all for your time and being part of the conversation. See you all same time tomorrow in the Situation Room to talk further about the Pahalgam false flag attack and India's war hysteria that it is now shying away from. Till then, take care.